what we're going to do now is focus on the problem. So the zero contract is supposed to be a problem, but the next side of this will be, okay, is that the real problem? Is that the actual problem we should be talking about, or is it not? I'm going to use an extract. It was from the big question, completely on zero-hour contracts, and I'm going to play it now. Hopefully the sound is correct.
Zero-hour contracts are when you sign up to work for a company, but that employer has no obligation to actually offer you any paid hours. They're common in catering, building, retail, and tourism. Even Buckingham Palace uses them, and many workers like the flexibility, especially students and pensioners who work for that little bit extra. But many can't make ends meet when they have no idea how much money they're going to earn each week. And now refusing a zero-hour contract could lose you state benefits. Are zero-hour contracts ethical?
There's loads of questions in there, but we're going to start with, are zero-hour contracts ethical?
Are they ethical? Are they ethical? It's a hard question to answer if it's ethical, because
we could split it up and say we choose.
People are so individual, and it fits some people's lives, and it's unethical for another person's life. So
if we split it up to 6 parts, say we do big business, small businesses, industry-specific businesses, then we do students, families, and then we do single-parent families.
Even in splitting it, it's still questionable, because, for example, a care company, for example, who is contracted to work with bringing in carers to work with an individual, and for some unforeseen reason the contract ends early for the company. They then will be contracted to keep their staff on when they're no longer contracted by whoever was contracting them and paying them. So now they've got staff that they're not bringing in income to pay for their staff. So you could have a large business where the same sort of thing, they're contracted on smaller things, the contract ends, there's no more work. Is it then for the company to take the responsibility of to pay somebody, keeping them on board? And then from the worker's point of view, you made a point about the company saying that they could only work for one company. Something like that, I think, is unethical. So it's the ethics that the company brings in, or whatever the individual who's looking for the job, what they question, because some people may take the job and say, I only want this job because I'm going to do it for a couple of days and then I didn't want to do no more work. But they wouldn't tell the employer that they was only coming in to do a short bit of work and leave. That would be unethical.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's about the intention. And unless we know the intention of the people behind the matter, it's hard for me to answer.
Could I just expand and say, ethics is such a broad topic for a specific subject in zero-hour contracts. And like Ricky was saying, each situation will be different. So it depends on the individual circumstances to say whether it's ethical or non-ethical. To completely brand zero-hour contracts as non-ethical, I feel would be a mistake personally. I would say, moreover, they are ethical. However, you have to take into account, like Ricky said, I agree also with the point of whereby you're not allowed to be hired by any other company. I agree that that's unethical. However, overall, I would say they are unethical. It is an ethical topic. It's just how it's being implemented.
Okay, we break it up and we say, okay, how it's being implemented, because again, no legislation means it's completely on what basis you decide.
I was just going to say, I think when we talk about big businesses, the fact that McDonald's is probably one of the highest zero-hour contract employers, or one of them, along with Burger King and chains like that who are massive. That McDonald's isn't going to stop hiring people at any point because people enjoy their McDonald's. So it's like, why can't they give people contracts? It doesn't.
A company like that should have no reason
to do zero-hour contracts.
To be doing zero-hour contracts. Their trade's not going to end tomorrow.
According to the Guardian, 90% of their employees are actually on zero-hour contracts.
Exactly.
And they have 1,200 restaurants in the UK. So that means about, because I did the maths, about 85,000 people employed in the UK. McDonald's have on zero-hour contracts.
Can I say one thing? No, I was going to say, in terms of the ethics side of it, it can be unethical depending on whether the person wants the casual work or not. For example, they said in there, and we was talking about it before, they said if you don't take the 0-hour contracts, they'll take away your state benefits and stuff like that. So that's like forcing you, for a person who's being forced into 0-hour contracts, I think it could be unethical. Because I guess a person who's being forced into it doesn't want the casual work, they want something that's more consistent. So I think in terms of that, it's definitely unethical. But if a worker wants to have that casual work, it's always going to be beneficial and it will be ethical for them, I guess.
But then that's not the question of the 0-hour contracts, that's then who's forcing them into work. So then it's in question is the job centre just...
Are they acting ethically? Are they acting ethically?
Yeah, are they acting ethically in terms of forcing people into work that is not productive for their life standards?
Can I say something? It's just regarding the point that you made earlier, and it does fall under ethics. You said Labour do intend to, if you work on a 0-hour contract for longer than 3 months, you'll be entitled to a permanent contract. So I was just wondering, bearing in mind the example that you used, where the P45 was handed to the person who had to go to university, I believe, would it not provoke unethical behaviour from business owners who are apprehensive to hand out permanent contracts? When they see that 3-month stage reaching, they'll just get rid of that person and then hire somebody else in order to avoid handing out permanent contracts.
I think that is a risk, and look, at the moment they're handing out P45s willy-nilly anyway, so you could, it might just be, like I said, there's nothing to stop them from saying, well, I'm going to hire, my mate or this person that I like, this worker that I like more than you, so, you're surplus to requirement, or I get the feeling that you might be unreliable because you turned work down a couple of times. So there's nothing to stop that now. So, yeah, I can, unethical employers are going to behave unethically. What we're trying to do is say, okay, well, we'll allow enough flexibility for seasonal work, 3 months if it's over the summer, and if you need a period of time in your business for a 0-hour contract for a specific purpose. But if you can, what we're seeing is people on 0-hour contracts for years and years. So, like I say, you can clearly afford to hire people if you're hiring them for that amount of time on a 0-hour contract. It's clearly got nothing to do with a particular problem that the business is experiencing at a certain time or not. So it's to give them stability in the long term, where at the moment P45s are being issued willy-nilly.
Okay. Yeah, no,
okay, I'm going to continue with the extract. 2 people are going to speak. One's going to be Christian Mays from the Institute of Directors. It basically is like a group which associates with the directing managers of various firms. And the other one is going to be a journalist from The Guardian, a young journalist from The Guardian.
Christian May from the Institute of Directors. Good morning, Christian. Some figures say there are more here than anywhere else, there are more here than ever before. Tell me, is this flexibility or is it exploitation?
It's definitely flexibility. Now, the numbers involved have been up for debate in the last couple of months. Now, the Office for National Statistics, who have done the biggest and most recent analysis of the labour market and 0-hours contracts, have said that there are 1.4 million such contracts in use. Now, that's not to be confused with saying there are 1.4 million people on these contracts, because people will have more than one. Sometimes people will have them and they might in fact be dormant. So I think it's important to keep in perspective that we're talking about between 3 and 5% of the overall labour market. And within that, we know, because this is also from the ONS reports, that 65% of people on such arrangements, flexible contracts or non-guaranteed hours contracts, say that they have high job satisfaction, and 60% say that they value flexibility to such an extent that they would rather not work in different conditions. Now, both of those statistics are actually a little bit higher than when you ask the same question of people in overall general employment. So,
a few things there. You said that people use 0-hour contracts as between 5 to 6% of the labour force. Now, with that statistic, do you think 0-hour contracts is such a problem that we should be discussing it the way we are, or the fact that it's causing such panic amongst the political community?
Personally, I don't.
The 5 to 6%, that's like, it's less than 1/10.
I don't think that there are more pressing issues than 0-hour contracts. However, it is an important topic. It's very important because it's regarding people's finances. And as we know, so like to use an old cheesy phrase, money makes the world go round. So in a way, yeah, it's important, but I feel perhaps there's some truth to that. We are making a bigger deal out of it then.
Because some say the economic recovery, and then others say stuff about there's not enough jobs. I mean, is 0-hour contracts the reason for it? Is 0-hour contracts maybe just the effect of that sort of environment? What do you say, Josh?
Just to use that, I feel like stats are quite, they can be manipulated, because how many young people are on 0-hour contracts? I think that's something that I want to know, because the thing about 0-hour contracts, as you were saying, is I can understand his point about flexibility, but you can get that flexibility if you just talk to your employer. I can give an example. When I was working at PC World and running my Labour campaign at the same time, I had to ask for flexibility in a sense, and they gave it. So it's just about, you don't have to be in a 0-hour contract to get flexibility. I feel like that's a nonsense answer. It's just how it's your relationship with your employer. That's essential. And I feel with 0-hour contracts, there hardly is that a strong relationship with your employer, unless you're like Roxanne mentioned earlier. Unless you're like buddies with him or mates with him, then he would probably understand you a little bit more. But if you're not, if you're just a name to him, he might just give you your just tap you on the spot.
Just sorry to interject. Could I just ask? You said that you want to know how many young people would be on 0-hour contracts. If the figure is higher, would that make 0-hour contracts worse, or why is that so important, young people?
I think it's important to me because first of all, I'm a young person myself. I'm only 22. I'm not that old. But the people that I talk to who 0-hour contract affects them a lot is young people. A lot of young people who are disenfranchised with that argument of get into education, get a good job, who don't believe in the argument and will want to go straight into employment and find that most of anything they can get is 0-hour contracts. And I feel like it's all about experience, isn't it? So if you get into a 0-hour contract and you have a harsh experience of it, it could set you down for the rest of your life, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand that when you get into a job, it's a psychological thing as well. So it's like, if you get turned down, if you have the example that Charlotte had, it could crush you in a sense. We're really fragile. Young people are really fragile at the moment as well. So it's like, I want to be able to voice their opinions, because if there is no voice for them, then they're going to get manipulated all the time. And that's probably another discussion for another day, but that's what it is.
I just want to come back to your original question about, are we making too much of a big deal out of this? Is our response disproportionate? And I would say absolutely not. And like I say, I'm the cabinet member in charge of the benefits system in Brent, and what I see is people coming in week after week having to change their circumstances on the system because they don't know what hours they're going to be getting from week to week. They're coming in with their kids, their benefits have to be readjusted. The council's having its money cut by almost 40% between 2010 and 2018, so there's a huge financial implication for all of these workers that are coming in week after week and needing that resource and one-to-one support to be able to alter their benefits. So that it's linked to the amount of council finance and resource that we have, but also poverty. The cost of poverty to the economy is huge. We know that the majority of people in poverty are now in work. 0 hours contracts have a direct link to that. So I think it is absolutely relevant, and this is exactly the kind of conversation we need to be having more, not less of.
Cool. I just want to say 0 hour contracts is important, yes, I agree with you, but it's just the manipulation of 0 hour contracts being the focus. Is it 0 hour contracts as the problem, or opportunities in general as a whole for young people?
I was going to touch on that as well. Is it 0 hour contracts the conversation, or is it youth unemployment the conversation?
Yeah.
Is the statistics for those young people unemployed higher than this 5% that we're talking about on 0 hour contracts? And are young people being prepared enough to get good enough jobs? Like, they're not being put on, like, they have to go and look for 0 hour contract jobs, having to be put at risk to go to places like McDonald's and what have you. those sort of jobs sometimes should be seen as in between jobs. I can't see someone saying that. You can, no, let me not be short. Because you can go to McDonald's and you can start at McDonald's from a cashier or a cleaner and end up being a manager of a branch, yeah? So there is a route if you want that route and you want to go through that route, yeah? But how well are young people being prepared for careers, for further education, things like that, so that they don't have to be at risk to pick jobs that aren't serving them their best? Because if you're picking a job that's not serving you at your best, that means then you have to take the job that's offered, not because you have the skills to get a job, but because that's all that there is that you have to do. Yeah, and then if you're at the mercy of that, then people can manipulate you because you're at the mercy of just that job, because that's all you've been prepared for. So are young people being prepared for bigger and better things?
Sorry. Oh, I was going to say two things. First thing is, when we're talking about unemployment and 0-hour contracts, I don't really look at them as they're not really different to me, because if I can't work for a company for more than 3 months, to me I'm unemployed. So also I think people care about unemployment so much because we care if people are in jobs, because if people are in jobs, that's the more business the economy has, therefore we care about the economy and the growth of the economy. So to me, I think that's why it's such a big thing. And to me, if you are in a 0-hour contract, because I've been in a 0-hour contract and not worked for 7 months, so on the system, I have a job, and therefore people can make believe that there's a lot more jobs than there are. And I think that's why it's important, because you can't literally act like you have jobs and there's no jobs. Literally, that's a massive problem to me, I think.
Go back to Councillor Murray's point about the relationship between the employer and the worker. I feel like the existence of 0-hour contracts, they hinder an effective relationship between the employer and worker, because the worker can't communicate that they may want more reliability in the job because of fear of just being let go and being replaced by someone else. I think that often workers are seen as being easily replaced by employees. So the existence of 0-hour contracts, they don't allow effective communication between the employer and worker.
Well, after hearing everyone, I think one thing that kind of stands out between each and everyone's points is kind of like when you said about, Roxanne said about the sort of pressure that it has on government. And Ricky, when you refer to that, the business dealing with the cost it have of having someone when they're on sick, it kind of sounds like the question is not really, well, it kind of cannot be really 0 contracts. It's kind of more who pays when both of us are losing. So like government would have the debt crisis and stuff like that, and businesses would be losing money if the person's sick. So who pays when that happens? That's what seems really the question. Who pays for people who can't afford, who can't provide for themselves, or who pays for when people are off work, or for basically for the economy going bust? That's what I'm starting to hear that the question might be. Does anyone, how do you feel about it?
Who pays in?
Yeah, will it be big businesses? Like who's responsible? So is it because big businesses? So 0 contracts could be a way of big businesses or any business saying, okay, you pay when you're off work, you pay. You know, and other ways, government could be saying to businesses, no, you're supposed to pay. Is it more of that battle rather than youth unemployment? Is that the focus we're actually hidden under 0 contracts is going to?
I think that is a really good point.
Yeah.
From my perspective on the council, I see the council picking up the tab for business. We know there's the majority of people in poverty are in work. The majority of people receiving housing benefit are in work. So we know the state, all of the taxpayers are subsidising low wages. We're subsidising insecure jobs. And that's not right. If you're a business and you're making a profit, you have a responsibility over your employees. It shouldn't just fall onto the state, to all the taxpayers, to subsidise that low, insecure employment.